What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and today we're going to be talking about boss weaknesses. Now, I don't know why people aren't using these, but in a majority of lobbies that I do where I'm not playing with people that I know, nobody is using the boss weaknesses. And the game explicitly details out what these weaknesses are, and if you're not using them, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage. So I am here today to beg you, please use boss weaknesses. And we're going to go through all of them. We're going to talk about them because the game details them out. It even has it in little text here, you know, when assailed by multiple shadows, only sacred light can hinder the hunt. So let's break down what exactly the game is talking about when it says effective and what it means to use these. Now, first up, each boss has a separate weakness that is effective against it. These are things that are going to dynamically change the boss. It's going to alter their moveset. It's going to change a fundamental aspect of their fight. And if you're not using it, once again, you are making your fights significantly harder. So let's go through each of these, discuss the effective weakness for each boss and how it changes the fight. And first up, we have Tricephalos. Now, Tricephalos is going to be weak against holy damage. So if you're going into this fight and you have a Recluse or a Revenant on your team, and you find a Golden Order seal that has Discus of Light, grab it, give it to them, fight's over, GG. I can pretty much solo a Tricephalos if I am playing Revenant with Discus of Light because it is that impactful. On top of the fact that holy damage will cause a micro stagger on the boss, just giving you a free damage window, it is also going to debuff the boss, and especially when the boss splits, it's going to slow down those clones. It's going to make it so that they're not nearly as aggressive, they're not jumping around, they're not coordinating, they just kind of sit there and get bopped in the face. And if your entire team has holy, it's quite likely you're either going to kill Tricephalos before it splits or immediately after it splits because of how potent it is. Moving down from there, we have Gaping Jaw, and the Gaping Jaw is in particular weak to poison. Now, poison is especially impactful in this fight because it's just going to slow Gaping Jaw down and give you huge damage opportunities every time it procs. Basically, it gets poisoned and it has to like puke the poison out of its body, which is just a huge window for you to wail on it. It's also susceptible to a variety of other statuses. You can frostbite it, you can rot it, you can even sleep it, but poison is going to be the one that is going to lock this thing down. Now, another strategy that is a little bit weird to use, but Gaping Jaw will also try and eat teammates. When it does, if you hit it with large stagger attacks or large weapon arts or anything that's going to typically do large poise damage, it's going to spit that teammate back out, and it usually gives you a decent window to attack while this animation is happening. So while it's a little bit unorthodox, one strategy we've actually found somewhat effective is when Gaping Jaw goes to eat somebody, we let it try to eat them, and then we just pump big damage into it. They spit the person out, and then we, got a bunch of damage in for free. Moving down the list, we have Sentient Pest. Now, Sentient Pest's main weakness is going to be fire, and this is true for both the Scorpion and the Moth portion of the fight. If you're getting fire damage up on the Moth, it's going to actually do damage over time. You'll see the Moth like on fire, and its health bar just constantly ticking down. And it also looks like it wouldn't affect the Scorpion, but it does very impactful damage to the Scorpion. I had the Grafted Dragon a couple matches ago, ended up just spamming Bear Witness, and I was taking chunks off of the Scorpion as I used it. So regardless of what you're hitting with fire damage, it is going to cook the Sentient Pest quite literally. On top of that, one other call out for this fight is that if you do get poisoned, you can't just get rid of that poison on your own. It is a multiplayer type component you have to deal with. If you see somebody poisoned, you'll notice you're able to lock onto them, and there's going to be a little parasite that's attached to the neck of their character, and you can end up whacking it on off to get the poison off your teammate. Moving on from there, we have Augur. Now, Augur is going to be weak to lightning, being that it is an aquatic type creature. And lightning damage doesn't do anything crazy impactful in this fight from my experience, not in the same way it does in the other fights, but it is still effective in the sense that it's just going to mess Augur on up. Besides that, the other thing that I do want to call out regarding Augur is as this fight progresses and he goes into phase 2, eventually he's going to drop little teardrops out of the sky, and he can do multiple of these teardrops. When you see them, your team should be focused on killing those teardrops. If you don't kill them, they'll hit the ground, they'll explode, they'll put folks to sleep, and usually end up killing them in the process because it can do damage through the sleep. So focus the teardrops, use lightning damage, and perhaps the most important tip for Augur is make sure you bring range damage. And whether we're talking about mages that are casting or Iron Eye sniping with the bow, or even something like Raider, just using a great bow, if you're going into the Augur fight, everybody in that fight should have some method of dealing range damage, regardless of what it is, and it will be significantly easier. So if you're just running around slapping tentacles, that is going to take you ages. Now moving down from there, Equilibrious Beast. And this is one that I think a lot of people struggle with. He is susceptible to Frenzy, but Frenzy is obviously pretty hard to come by. You know, we have the Frenzy Flame spells, which are pretty rare. And then besides that, you have Fireprint Shield and Vike's War Spear, which are also pretty rare. So all things considered, what else can we do against Equilibrious Beast? Well, he is susceptible to fire as well as holy, but more than anything, he can be countered out quite simply by Raider. Now, let me explain. As the Equilibrious Beast fight progresses, he is eventually going to go into a shell, almost a meditative stance, and either you break him out of that shell, at which point he'll enrage for a brief duration, and then the fight continues, or you let him finish his chant, at which point he gets buffed up. Most of his magic ends up getting tripled, which means triple circles on the ground. It means more sigils. The sigils are going to rotate, and it's going to be significantly harder to deal with him in this state, if you can even deal damage at all in that state. Usually if he ends up getting buffed, your best bet is to just run. But there are quite a few things that can interrupt this skill outright. Now that skill can be shut down by breaking the various sigils, so you can use something like Iron Eye and just manually snipe each. Alternatively, you can use ultimates to break it. So single shot from Iron Eye will break all the sigils in one go, knocking him out. Wilder's Onslaught Stake will do enough stagger damage to knock him out outright. Raider's Totem Stella will also do enough stagger damage to knock him outright, which actually I think Totem Stella might just be killing all of the sigils, similar to how Iron Eye does. But more importantly, Raider can also knock him out with Retaliate when it is fully charged. Now, briefly, I want to talk about Retaliate because this is something I see a lot of people confusing. And honestly, if you have a Raider that knows how to use Retaliate, you're basically going to have him solo Libra while everyone else deals damage. Now, Retaliate uncharged looks like this. Very simple. We have a stop. We have a headbutt. Now instead, I'm going to let this thing beat on me for just a second until I get empowered. Now it's going to take quite a few hits to get it, but once you are empowered, you'll notice now Raider has a steamy aura around him. You can see it almost looks like smoke coming off of my body. And when he has that, Retaliate's moveset goes into a large charged, like uppercut, shoulder check, whatever you want to call it. But that move in particular does some of the highest stagger damage in the game. And it's actually strong enough that when empowered, Retaliate can single-handedly break Libra out of his chant. And so the reason this is so potent is if you have a Raider in your party, you can do the fight like normal. The first time Libra tries to go into his chant, more than likely Retaliate is already empowered. If you haven't used it, you can use Retaliate to break him out. The second time he tries to go into the chant, you can pop Ultimate Art Totem Stella to break him out. And then the third time, you can Retaliate once again, which should be charged up again by this point, knocking him out, allowing Raider to single-handedly handle all of these potential phase transitions and make things significantly easier for your team. Not stress this enough. I don't think I've ever lost Libra since I learned that trick, and I've had Raider in the fights. Moving on down from there, we have the Dark Drift Knight. Now, the Dark Drift Knight is going to be weak to lightning, very similar to Augur. And just to take a quick look at those, you can see lightning versus holy. They do look very similar, but you'll notice holy is more of a solid circle, whereas lightning is more of a half circle and a little bit more random. But with Dark Drift Knight, very briefly throughout the fight, he'll take a brief moment where he'll just kind of sit and it looks like he's getting ready to buff himself. And he is trying to buff himself. But if you hit him with a significant source of lightning damage in that period, whether this is in the form of a lightning weapon or a charged lightning spear or a weapon art that involves lightning, whatever the case is, you will knock him out of that. You'll cause a micro stagger and then the fight will continue as normal. If you don't knock him out, that is when he goes into his empowered stance and he's running around all over the place. And this is going to be true for the entirety of the fight. So both phase 1, phase 2, lightning is going to be able to lock him out of his empowered stance as long as you are interrupting his moveset with lightning anytime he tries to go for that power up. Moving down from there, we have Fissure in the Fog. Now, Fissure in the Fog is a pretty straightforward fight, all things considered. I actually think it's one of the easier Night Lords. And since cold is the name of the game, fire is going to be the weakness here. And very similar to when we apply the holy debuff to Tricephalos, there's also a fire debuff that we can apply to the Fissure in the Fog encounter. And as far as I can tell, I think it actually has an impact on his frostbite type effects. I want to say when you do have that fire debuff on him, his frostbite effects aren't as severe. But regardless, fire works incredibly well in this fight. Highly recommend it. On top of that, just the fact that he's a dragon and has a huge health pool, bleed is also very impactful in this fight. So something like Rivers of Blood is basically a best slot for this encounter. And then last but not least, of course, we have the final boss with Night Aspect. And his debuff actually functions very similar to Tricephalos. It's going to be Holy once again, and almost identical to how Tricephalos functions. When you hit him with Holy, we're going to see micro stuns. It's going to lock down a portion of his moveset, and it's going to be incredibly impactful. And if you don't believe me, you're free to watch the most recent stream where I was playing with Toxin Dylan. We did Night Aspect 3 times in a row, and 3 out of 3 times he got absolutely bullied. All 3 of those attempts, we went in, well, at least somebody on the team went in with holy damage. There was one where I just went in with a relic that made my base starting bow as Iron Eye Holy, and that was enough to apply the holy debuff to him. But the point here is that if you are going into these boss fights and you're not utilizing these elements, you're making things way, way harder for yourself. Because without holy here, Night Aspect is going to be way more aggressive. Without fire, Fissure is going to try and freeze your entire team. Without lightning, Dark Drift is going crazy. Without interrupting Equilibrious Beast, I mean, madness doesn't even really matter. It's more the interrupt. If you don't interrupt, he's going to try and kill your entire team. If you don't have range damage, Augur is just a incredibly tedious fight to deal with. Sentient Pest is just going to take way longer without fire. Without poison, Gaping is running all over like a cracked out cat, and you can barely get hits in. And then Holy just turns Tricephalos into a couple pair of puppies. So point being, if you are not using this stuff, please, please, please start using it. I know the game just says effective, but it should say weakness, because they are impactful in a absolutely huge way in these encounters.